Hello everyone, welcome back to my second channel, welcome back to Jack in the Books. Today I come to you with an iced oat milk latte in hand and we're going to be speaking about some books and it's going to be a fun time because I have been thinking a lot about book titles and I wanted to share with you my favourite book titles that I have encountered, and I'd love to hear what your favourite book titles are as well. I actually at one point posted a TikTok where I accidentally made a book talk sound because I was like showing a book title and I was like, and the award for the best book title ever goes to, and then the book flips over and it became like a trend on Book Talk, which was so cool. So I've got to see a lot of your favourite book titles, but I would love to know more. So tell me in the comment section down below what your favourite book title is. But I actually have mine written down in this notepad. I've been keeping track of my favourite book titles, partly because this is my notepad that I use for coming up with ideas for my own book, and I have this like double page where I have titles for the book, so potential book titles for the projects I'm working on, but then also titles for books I will never write. So sometimes I come up with something that I'm like, that would make such a good book title, but it isn't right for this particular project, and so I just keep track of them, I write them down. I'm nervous to read them out just in case I end up using one of them. Let me just give you one. I love a long, kind of provocative book title. So this one that I wrote down is Grief Sounds as Good as the Gallop. And that is a line from a poem that I read. And I just thought it would make such a wonderful book title. Grief sounds as good as the gallop. It's so satisfying to say. Grief sounds as good as the gallop. Can you imagine that being like a novel? That would be so cool. But instead of reading out potential titles for my book, I wanted to read you my favourite book titles that I have come across that are published titles by other people. And today I thought I would go over them and we can just nerd out about how lovely these words are. You know, I just think it's such a talent to come up with a really effective book title. And I absolutely will buy a book just based solely on the value, the merit of the title. So let's go through them. Firstly, I have Build Your House Around My Body. I think that is so beautiful and evocative, and for me that's like the perfect length of a title. You'll definitely see that reflected in this list. The second one I have is No One Is Talking About This. This is very much the theme of the book as well. It's all about how online discourse covers pretty much everything. And so when you're kind of like chronically online, if you then go through a very private personal life experience, it's odd to then not be discourse about that thing and for that to be a private experience. And so the first half of the book is all about online discourse and the second half of the book is kind of about a family tragedy. And I just think No One Is Talking About This is a great book title because I was instantly like, I want to know what no one is talking about. I also have Something Wicked This Way Comes. That just tastes delicious on the tongue when you say it out loud. The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Wow, what a title. Milan Kundera actually died yesterday, which is so sad. This book is wonderful and magnificent and he was such a talent. I actually have a video coming out on my main channel very, very soon where I talk about this book in more depth, but the concept of weight and lightness is spoken about extensively in the book, and so this title I just think is such a beautiful and unique thing to call your book. Speaking of which, next one I have is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. That is brilliant. It's so unforgettable. I think it is a perfect representation of the central narrator as well, the main character. Like that's exactly what that character would call that book, and I think that's brilliant. I have The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I just think that's lovely. All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. Also by Mieko Kawakami, Breasts and Eggs. And the reason I love this one is because the first half of the book is all about cosmetic surgery, hence breasts, and the second half of the book is all about fertility, hence eggs. And I think that it's one of those titles that catches your eye straight away, but actually is so relevant to the book as well, and for that reason, I love it. So concise, but so perfect. Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald, I just think is so lovely and romantic. Like, tender is the night. I think the word tender in itself is just exquisite. A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway. I think this concept of Paris being a movable feast that stays with you is just magnificent, and Paris is all about that indulging in finer things. It is a feast to the eyes, to your stomach, you know, like literally, but also in a more philosophical way, it is a kind of feast. And I love the idea that that moves with you throughout the rest of your life. I think that's just marvellous. Things We Say in the Dark is a book title that just makes you want to buy that book and take it home and read it. And it's this kind of horror, weird little collection of short stories, and the writing is just divine. This one I love, Eats, Shoots and Leaves. Now this is actually a book about grammar, but what's really smart about it is that the title comes from a little joke. It's kind of a bar joke about grammar, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's kind of like that idea of like, if you say, let's eat, comma, grandma, it sounds like you're asking your grandmother to eat with you. If you remove the comma from that sentence and just say, let's eat grandma, that sounds like you want to put your grandma in a casserole. And this title kind of plays on a similar idea. So basically the joke is that a panda goes to a bar, has a meal, and then after the meal, shoots everyone and leaves the bar. And someone says to the panda, like, what the hell did you do that for? That's crazy. And then the panda gives them this wildlife manual, which has been poorly printed and has terrible grammar. And when it talks about the diet of a panda, it says a panda eats, comma, shoots, and leaves. But of course, if you remove that comma, it would be a panda eats, shoots, and leaves. As in, that is their diet. So, you know, I just think it's like a fun play on words, changing those nouns into verbs, and I think that's a brilliant title for a collection all about grammar, because this collection is very tongue-in-cheek as well, so it kind of sets the tone perfectly. Before we move on to the next book, I just wanted to let you know that today's video is very kindly brought to you by Surfshark. And Surfshark is a title you should not forget because you need this. Surfshark is a VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network, and the key word there is private, because Surfshark makes sure that anything that you do is kept private. So if you are like me and you like to go to coffee shops or libraries or public places to sit and do your work, Surfshark will keep you safe. So if you're using public Wi-Fi, Surfshark makes sure that anything that you put onto the internet is encrypted, meaning it's obscured and hackers cannot access it. So then you can just do your work and relax and be at peace and know that you are being protected. Also, you can travel virtually using Surfshark. And what that means is that you can change the location of your device. So let's say another country's Netflix has something that you want to watch on it. You could change your virtual location to that place, to that country, and then unlock it. I use Surfshark absolutely every single day, every time I use my device, and so I highly recommend it from personal experience. And if you would like to use it too and get 3 extra months free, you can use the code JBooks at the link on screen, which I will also link down below, over on Surfshark. 3 extra free months. Thank you so much, Surfshark, for working with me on this video. That is such a bargain. And honestly, you're welcome. This is a game changer. And now on to the next book. Oh, also, Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris, just a genius way of playing with language and colloquialism. I think that's brilliant. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is a classic. You know, that is one of the ultimate, I saw the title and therefore I bought the book, kinds of books. Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, just that idea of being trapped and yet finding beauty in that moment and still having a voice that could charm and be beautiful. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is just brilliant. How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. Of course, this is another one of those titles where you see the book and you just instantly want to pick it up. But also, if you saw someone else reading that in public, like, you would be intrigued. It might give you a giggle. I was just on holiday and I was reading a book called Send Nudes. And again, I love this book title. I think it's a conversation starter, it's fun, it's playful. It's a short story collection, and one of the stories in the book is actually called Send Nudes. But I think I'm so happy that they chose this title for the book, because otherwise I don't know if I would have picked it up. On a similar vein, Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. I remember reading this book in public and being like, everyone around me is probably thinking, what does he know that we don't? But I really love it. And the book is great too. It's about this woman who gets a job at a church kind of by accident. She thought she was going to kind of like a therapy session, but ends up getting a job and becomes implicated into the investigation of a death. And it is existential and anxious and chaotic and just so good. Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory. Need I say more? That is just so... it's perfect. That is, the perfect title does exist, and it's that. And that book was actually written by one of the writers of BoJack Horseman, so that's quite cool. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, classic. It does give you an insight a bit into what the book is about. It is about this kind of magical coffee shop where people can go back in time, but only for as long as their coffee stays hot. And there's something about that warmth and simplicity of just like having a coffee, which perfectly captures the sort of whimsical vibes of the book itself, and just I think this is great. I mean, Shakespeare, Much Ado About Nothing. I think this is a wonderful title. Shakespeare was the GOAT, right? That's the understatement of the century, but I think Much Ado About Nothing is just a perfect title for a play and perfectly captures the tone and the energy that this play brings. I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I think this title was so brilliant because it caught so many people's attention, and Jeanette McCurdy's book could easily have sort of gone a little bit under the radar, but because of this title, so many people were intrigued by it, and it's fascinating, it's fantastic, it's so brilliantly told. She is an absolute master of her craft, and I'm Glad My Mum Died is all about her relationship with her mother. It's a memoir, and what she really talks about is that experience with her mother, but also the therapy that she's undergone after her mum died, and how having that distance from her mother gave her a lot of clarity. So the title is also accurate to what the book is about, but again, just like turns heads straight away. A lot of these are about death, I realise. The next one is also about death. I want to die, but I want to eat tteokbokki. Come on now. Come on now. There's no beating that. That is just brilliant. I Fear My Pain Interests You is this brilliant statement on voyeurism. I think that's such a great title. Through the Billboard Promised Land Without Ever Stopping. Holy moly. This is a book I bought entirely because of the title. And I think it just has this like rhythm to it. Through the Billboard Promised Land Without Ever Stopping. Even the title sounds like a journey. You kind of end saying that title a little bit breathless. So you said the title without ever stopping too. Perfect. And of course this list could not happen without some Haruki Murakami. So I have South of the Border, West of the Sun. Again, this perfectly captures this like filter that Murakami novels seem to have. The way that he captures the world is so singular and unique. Like you could tell you were reading a Murakami story if you just picked up a random page because of his writing style is just immaculate, and I think this title, South of the Border, West of the Sun, captures that whimsy, and I love it. And then the other one I have for Haruki Murakami is Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. Again, that's just so brilliant, unique, unforgettable. I actually haven't read this one yet. This is the only one in the list I haven't read, but I would very much like to. A book that I didn't love the contents of, but love the title, is The Illicit Happiness of Other People. And then a book that I read and did love was My Dark Vanessa. And the reason I love this title is because it's taken from a Nabokov book. It comes from the book Pale Fire, which is also a great title. But the reason I love this is because My Dark Vanessa is a novel all about an inappropriate relationship with an older person who is in a position of authority and power, and it draws a lot of parallels with Lolita, and it references Lolita and is in constant conversation with Lolita by Nabokov. And so I really love that the title also comes from another of Nabokov's work, which is Pale Fire, and he refers to someone within that book as My Dark Vanessa. So that's my list. I think book titles are so important. You know, I was actually very proud of my book title for my first book, which is The Universe, because it's a book about university, but I wanted to talk about how it is this kind of mini universe in itself and how it's its own little world. And so I loved, once I came up with The Universe, there was no other title for that book. Like, that was what I always referred to it as, that's what I always thought of it as, and I was so glad that my publishers liked it and agreed, because I sent them a list of like 30 potential book titles, but that one was just like in bold and italics at the top, like, this is the title. The Universe has to be the title of this book. The Ultimate Guide to University, The Universe. I don't know, because we refer to university as uni colloquially anyway, so I was very proud of that, The Universe. That's probably the bit of the book I'm most proud of, is that title, because I really... Listen, credit where credit's due. I feel like I nailed that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know which books I missed, which books have wonderful titles, and I definitely will end up purchasing some of them because a title always gets me going. So let me know, and I look forward to having that conversation in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. All the best. Stay in touch. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye!